Hello, Internet. We're back. Way Too Indie. Way Too Indie Hangout number, I don't know, 50 or
Four.
something. Oh, four. Close enough. Way Too Indie Hangout number 4. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm Bernard, writer over at way2indie.com, and joining me today on the show is the editor-in-chief of way2indie.com, Dustin Jancic. Hello, Dustin.
Hey guys.
And CJ Prince,
Hello.
another writer on the site. How are you, CJ?
I'm fine.
We're all doing fine. Dustin, you said you had a little bit of a bad day today. Let's get that out of the way first. What happened?
Oh man, I don't even want to talk about it. Let's just say hail damage. We had a big storm come through, and there was a tornado warning in effect. I kind of would have rather if there had been a tornado, I think, maybe.
Oh,
Not
wow.
around me, but in the vicinity, because there's just hail damage and cars got damaged.
And you're in South Dakota, of course.
Yep.
And Sioux Falls, to be exact. And CJ.
Hale Alley.
Yeah. And CJ, you're up in Canada, of course. Our
Yes.
Canadian correspondent, I like to refer to you as. And I'm over here in sunny California. But now, Dustin, you have all this rage. And on today's episode of Way Too Indie Hangout, we're going to get that rage out.
That's
Because
right.
this is the biggest shit talking episode we've had since in the show's long history. We're going to be talking about the worst films of 2014 so far. There have been some real pieces of shit coming out that we've all seen, and we're just ready and amped to get our juices flowing about those. Because coming up soon here on the site, we're going to have a series of conversations about our favorite films of the year so far. We're really excited about this. We're going to have one-on-one conversations with a lot of our writers about what we've liked so far this year. But now, for this episode, we're just going to talk garbage the whole time. Following that, we're going to have Dustin and CJ participate in a little segment we're going to call Watch This, where they, prior to this episode, they suggested to each other movies that they enjoyed that they'd like the other one to watch, and they're going to have a discussion about that. CJ suggested to Dustin to watch We Are the Best, the Swedish punk rock movie, and Dustin suggested to CJ to watch something about Velvet, right? What was that movie
Some
called?
Velvet Morning.
Some Velvet Morning with
You were
Tucci.
close, actually.
Mr. Tucci, Stanley
Yeah.
Tucci. So they're going to have that conversation to close out the show. But first, to get things started, let's talk about what we've been watching recently. CJ, let's start with you. What have you watched recently?
Okay, so I recently watched, well, there's a bit of a sneak peek because my review will be going up next week. The film Haley, not sure how to pronounce it. It won Best Director at Cannes last year. It's a Mexican film about the title character. He's a young factory worker, married with child, lives with his family. His 12-year-old sister falls in love with a 17-year-old cadet in training. They want to get married, so the cadet decides to steal some drugs from a recent drug bust of the cartel to sell it, and then they can run off together. Naturally, when you see a movie involving the cartel, things don't go so well for people who try and mess with them, especially for Helly. To me, I would say there's a term called artsploitation, which is used for the kind of like an art house geared exploitation movie. If someone asked me to pick like a really good example of an artsploitation movie, I would pick this one.
Nice.
I don't think it's really good. I think that's not a good thing. Artsploitation's not a good thing. It seems to be tailored for the festival circuit. It has these very fixed long shots and a lot of elegant camera work, which is why it probably won Best Director. You have a lot of sudden brutal violence. I mean, there's a scene where a puppy gets his neck snapped, and then there's a scene where a guy gets lighter fluid poured all over his genitals and they light it on fire. And
Sounds like my shit, man. Sounds like my kind of movie.
The whole point is like this. It has some ideas in there about like how the drug cartel, the drug war in Mexico is kind of making violence and death more commonplace within like the average Mexican household, because Haley's family is not very they're more straight laced, and then after what his sister does, things go to shit for them. But to me, I think it's just very rote, very generic, art housey, violent film. If you want to see a better movie that does the same subject matter, I'd recommend the movie Miss Bala, which came out a few years ago. Yeah, so I'd leave it at that.
What are some other examples of artsploitation movies you'd say?
Oh God, there's a movie that just played at Cannes this year that I was reading about that seems to fit the label. I forget the name though. I can't think of other artsploitation movies off the top of my head, but you know, it's the kind of I'm trying to think. You know, Michael Haneke gets compared to artsploitation quite a bit. I disagree.
Lars von Trier.
No, I wouldn't say Lars von Trier. This is more of shit. I'm trying to think of like a festival title in the last few years that you know people got all up in arms about because it was like say super violent or you know had some brutality in there.
Wasn't that Nicholas Winding Refn movie pretty violent?
Yeah, I mean that could probably fall into the label. I would say definitely artsploitation because it's just kind of like you know that I would say Only God Forgives probably that could fall under it. Yeah, it's just very nihilistic kind of movies that have a lot of brutal violence.
What about that Proxy? You saw Proxy, right?
I actually didn't see Proxy, no.
Oh no, Dustin, you saw Proxy?
No, I was going to, and I was talked out of it by CJ.
Not by me, no, Bernard, I didn't see it.
Maybe it was you, Bernard. I think someone talked me out of it, kind of like, well, maybe you shouldn't. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I
bet
won't.
it was Ananda. It was probably Ananda.
I don't think so. It was
no,
either
probably,
you or Blake.
I'll blame it on Ananda. It's fine.
Okay, all right, we'll blame it on Ananda.
I have a little rivalry going on there right now with Ananda.
She finally saw Nymphomaniac.
She liked it too, right?
Half of it, the first half.
Yeah.
She must not have liked it that much if she didn't see part 2.
Well, I mean, yeah. She has her reasons for not liking Lars von Trier films, so I don't blame her.
All right, so let's move on to Boss Man, D-City. What have you been watching recently?
Well, I just watched the latest from Joe Swanberg, which my review also will be next week, I believe, or the week after. I have to remember. I think it's the 23rd is when it hits VOD. And it's kind of what you expect from Joe Swanberg if you've ever seen any of his films before. It stars Anna Kendrick from Drinking Buddies, so she kind of returns, but also Leah Dunham from Girls and Mark Webber, who's just awesome. And, of course, Joe Swanberg stars in his own film.
Of course.
What's the movie called?
Happy Christmas.
Okay.
And the setup is as basic as you would expect from a Swanberg film. Essentially, it's two young parents who are busy sort of raising their 2-year-old child, who's actually played by Joe Swanberg's actual son. Little fun fact. And they sort of are in their own little thing. They're like 30 years old, and then they get sort of a call from Joe Swanberg, the husband's sister, played by Anna Kendrick, and she just went through a bad breakup. So she's looking for a place to stay, and they welcome into her house, and the sort of they kind of go through a rift as you would expect. She doesn't trust his sister, and he tries to stand up for her, and she's super unresponsible, but they think they might get a babysitter out of the deal. They think they might get some help around the house. They're both professionals. He plays, of course, a filmmaker, and the wife is a novelist who wants to start writing again, and they think this might be an opportunity, but it turns out it might not be, because of her actions. And so it's a really breezy, lighthearted film that doesn't have a big, impactful finish. It's very loose script, as you'd expect. It's very just like improv, heavy dialogue, and but it was worth a watch. It's good for what it is. It's like 78 minutes. It's under 80 minutes. It's really easy to sit through. And especially if you're a fan of anyone who's involved in the film, it's definitely worth a watch. But it's not quite as good as his previous film, Drinking Buddies. It's not quite as concise and quite as emotional or impactful as that. But that does have some good themes in it. And actually, it's a lot about, he modeled the film after his own life, essentially. Using his own kid, he plays a filmmaker. His wife actually shows up in the film, not as his wife, but she makes a cameo. And, it's really kind of a love letter to her, really. And definitely worth a watch.
Awesome. And I'm sure that one's Netflix bound.
Oh, yeah,
make
definitely.
That production. So we'll be checking that one out soon. Last night, 2 nights ago, I watched The Fault in Our Stars.
Oh.
Yeah, the new movie starring Shailene Woodley of Divergent, and what was the other one with George Clooney she was in?
Descendants.
Yeah.
Descendants and Divergent fame, and she's acting across from her brother in Divergent, Ansel Elgort, who plays her love interest in The Fault in Our Stars. It's about a girl named Hazel Grace who has cancer of the lungs and meets the love of her life, another kid with cancer, played by Elgort, named Gus. And I went in I walked into the press screening, and it was just full of little girls, as I expected. But I was pleasantly surprised. I actually quite enjoyed the film. I thought it was pretty life-affirming and pleasant and positive, and it was. And I think also Woodley and Ansel Elgort, even though they're very young and don't have much experience on screen, they're very charismatic, and they exude intelligence, which is rare for actors their age, I think. Typically, when I see actors early in their career like these two, they're kind of speaking intelligent dialogue, but you don't really believe them. And these two seem like they have some, a good head on their shoulders. So, yeah, it was a touching film, and I wasn't crying, actually. It didn't touch me in a tearjerker way, the way it touched everyone else, but I was actually impressed by the other aspects of the film, and that it looked slick, the performances are great, and Laura Dern is fucking fantastic in the movie. I love Laura Dern, and she's an awesome war mother. Yeah, I kind of just adore everything she does. So, yeah, Fault in Our Stars, pleasant surprise. The review will be up, depending on when you watch this, it'll just be up, but I'm going to be posting it tomorrow morning.
Nice.
I have no interest in the movie. I mean, not that I have anything against it. I know people have like this hatred for a young adult, but I was calling it Chekhov's terminal illness, because I feel like when you have a movie about someone with a terminal illness, someone's got to die by the end.
Oh yeah. And actually that part, the inevitable, someone dying at the end was. Actually wasn't very didn't affect me so much, but it was executed well.
How did the Anne Frank museum scene go? Because I read about that.
You know what, dude? You know what? Like when they mentioned Anne Frank house, I shriveled up. I was like, oh god, this is gonna be bad. And it was okay. So it was. I would understand if someone viewed it as cheesy, but it's this kind of physical. It's a physical predicament that Hazel Grace gets put in, and it looks pretty excruciating. And I was actually pretty wrapped up in it. It worked. Okay. It worked.
I was doing, because I didn't know anything about the movie, so I was reading up on it, and I just went on the Wikipedia page for the novel I was reading, and I read that part from the book, and I was like, oh god.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you know what makes it work is that Woodley and Elgort do have that charisma, and every time you think, oh god, this is so cheeseball, you kind of look into their eyes and you're with it again. Yeah. They kind of save you from that. So, I was pleasantly surprised by that movie. I was going in it probably less enthused than you are right now. Actually, I was going in pretty negatively, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
But, that'll wrap it up for what we've been watching recently. Now we're going to get into the shitstorm, going straight into the crap, the feces of 2014 so far. Who knows what awaits us the rest of the year, but we've had ample amounts of crappy movies to talk about here. So just to preface this, the three of us don't know what the others are going to say. We don't know what our least favorite movies are, so this is going to be interesting. Our reactions are going to be live, and we're going to be as surprised as you are. So let's get into it, shall we, gentlemen?
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with Dustin.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I thought of three. three films that are just terrible. But I would say of those three, my least favorite would probably be Labor Day. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I would hope you haven't. Okay. Good. You're better off for it. The biggest problem with the film is it feels like a Lifetime movie. It's a paint-by-number approach to a romantic story that plays out exactly as you would think it would. Of course, the movie is set over Labor Day. A single mother who can't properly raise her child ends up falling in love for a convicted murderer who kidnaps her, which I guess is a thing, but there's a little more to than that. But that's essentially what it boils down to, and everything about it just screams really super conventional. Kate Winslet's in it, Josh Brolin. There's contrived storylines. There's cheesy flashbacks that are just thrown in there, like at the right times, very conventional, like I said, and just the outcomes are straightforward, everything about it. And it's a shame because the director of Labor Day actually, he's done some pretty good stuff. He's done, Thank You for Smoking, Up in the Air, Juno, but Labor Day is mediocre at best, and you're better off not seeing it.
Good warning. That's a good one to start off with. I heard terrible things about that movie, and now it's just been affirmed by our head honcho, Dustin Jancic. Now, CJ, let's talk about what you hated. Now, this whole segment was your idea, so there's a lot of build up to what your least favorite movie of the year was. So, are you going to start with the least favorite, or are you going to kind of build up?
I was going to go in the opposite direction of Dustin.
All right,
I want to start with like my least favorite. Yeah, whatever. Okay,
Best of the worst.
Yeah, so that's going to go to most of the movies. Actually, I got three. Most of them I saw at TIFF last year, and just came out this year. But this one's Night Moves by Kelly Reichardt, which I know I'm in a minority over.
Not really, man. Not on this podcast.
Well, it's not that, I like Kelly Reichardt a lot. I love Wendy and Lucy. I love the crap out of Meek's Cutoff. I saw this at TIFF last year. One of the titles I was looking forward to because I just really enjoy her work. And I like how, like, for example, with Meek's Cutoff, she takes this kind of very unique approach to a genre film. In that case was the Western. This time she's doing what people will classify as, I guess, the eco-thriller about these three activists, played I think by Jesse Eisenberg, Dakota Fanning, and Peter Sarsgaard, who blow up a dam for that they're protesting for whatever reason. Part of the movie's point is that the politics or the reasoning behind kind of, they're not very well defined, and they do kind of lose their meaning as time goes on. But so it deals with the fallout afterward. It deals with them, prepping the attack and any fault that happens after the outcome. So, I don't know. I mean, like, I was trying to think of a way to put it. I would say the experience of watching it is like watching a stalled car try to start. Because it's just like, you're revving it, and it kind of, like, you're like, oh, and then it just dies again. And it's like, shit. So, I thought it just, I don't know. I think it was just failed in terms of her approach to this specific type of film. I think it just didn't work at all compared to what she's done before. It was really, really slow. The characters, this was the first time I didn't care about any of the characters in her film. Meek's Cutoff, I really like the characters. Wendy and Lucy, Michelle Williams is great. This one didn't give a shit about anyone. I thought that Jesse Eisenberg was just a blank slate, just so poorly defined. And especially when you combine that with her style, which is so slow or glacially paced, it was just like arduous. Like by the last half hour, I'm just sitting there, I'm like, just like waiting for the movie to just end. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, CJ. I don't know if I disliked it as much as you, but it's handily, to me, her worst film. Handily. Yeah. Because her other stuff's so great. Like, I adore both Meek's Cutoff and Wendy and Lucy. But yeah, I agree. This film was not helped by her glacial pacing at all. And there are actually some gorgeous shots in the film, which is I come to expect from from Kelly Reichardt. But yeah, Eisenberg, who I was very impressed with in The Double, another film that came out just recently. I was very impressed with his performance. Yeah, Night Moves. It's just kind of all over the place. Yeah, I have no idea. I can't grasp that character.
I would say I wouldn't fault it in terms of Jesse Eisenberg or the acting, because they're all great. Dakota Fanning's really good. I think the one of the highlights is the scene where she goes to what is it? She goes to get the fertilizer or whatever.
Yes.
That's a good scene, and I'm glad Dakota Fanning's doing some good projects again. But yeah, no, I mean, part of it is because I know people say it's so tense, especially the first hour, but you know, I don't know. I just kind of just felt like I knew where it was going to go, and I was just waiting and waiting and waiting, hoping maybe something would change or something would happen, and I don't know.
And you know what? I think this is worth saying. Night Moves, although I'm with you on that one, I think we have to kind of talk about how these are our quote-unquote worst films of the year, but, you know, Kelly Reichardt's worst, even though I'm with you on that one, is better than a lot of other films come out, but how we're picking these films is not, we're not going to pick whatever, like Despicable Me 4,
And I want to preface too. I forgot I was going to preface by saying that actually, for me so far, I haven't seen a lot of awful movies this year. I've seen a couple, but the thing is, they were maybe like festival titles or something.
Right.
I can't really count them. So I'm going through, and even I was like, shit. I'm like, I mean, Night Moves is there, but to me, like Night Moves and one of the other movies I picked, they're not really movies I hate. I just think that they're like noble.
The worst. They're the worst so far. Yeah.
To me, they're more like they're not movies I outright hate or despise. They're just kind of like noble failures. Like this is just a failure. I'm not like boo Reichardt. I still love her. I think she's a great director.
Wait till you see Labor Day. You will.
Well, after what you just said, I'm not watching Labor Day.
Well, if you want to see a really bad movie, I'm saying it sounds like you're having a hard. I had no problem finding 3 films that, or at least 2 of my 3 are just really bad, and one of them maybe is in that same camp where like it's bad. It's not terrible. Like I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I've seen so many terrible movies this year at festivals, but it's like these movies don't get distribution for good reasons. So what's the point of mentioning them? It's irrelevant. So we're choosing movies that are letdowns because they did get distribution and perhaps they're from capable filmmakers and they just pooped out a dud.
Yeah.
But my least favorite film for me, the biggest dud, the biggest letdown and disappointment by far was God's Pocket. This film by Mad Men's John Slattery, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Don't disrespect the dead.
It's about to get ugly, CJ. I can't sugarcoat this. Philip Seymour Hoffman. Listen to this cast. It's Philip Seymour Hoffman, Christina Hendricks from Mad Men. Caleb Landry Jones is in it. Richard Jenkins is in it. John Turturro's in it. It's about a small town in Philly, the titular town, working man's town of God's Pocket, and Philip Seymour Hoffman plays this man who is married to Christina Hendricks, and she has a rotten son who isn't his, but it's his stepson, and the son gets murdered at work, and Philip Seymour Hoffman has to cover this up. Yes, he has to discover the truth about the murder, not cover it up. Excuse me. And he gets involved in all these mob-ish type of guys, and it's this kind of gritty East Coast town. And John Turturro is his kind of confidant, and the film sucks because it's so terribly disappointing because now that he's gone, I just want all of the remaining performances I see of Philip Seymour Hoffman to be great. And this one is it's bad. It's a bad Philip Seymour Hoffman performance. I never thought I'd say it. I think it's really bad. Like if and it's not his fault.
He was bad, or the film was bad.
It's a little bit of both. The writing's bad. The writing's bad, so he's unenthused. So he does a bad job. Like you can see on his face that he's struggling with the material. He doesn't care. He has this accent that fluctuates. He doesn't even care enough to maintain this stupid Philly accent the whole time, and it goes in and out of these small town cliches, blue collar cliches, construction workers and dive bars and all that, Turturro's probably the best part of the film. He's always good.
It kind of sounds like it's like a. I don't know if you guys saw Cold in July, or not Cold in July. Cold as the Night, or what's that one with Brian? Cold Comes the Night. It kind of reminds me of that, only the way you describe it, just because it had Bryan Cranston as the lead, and it almost seemed like a waste there because he was terrible. He had a weird accent for no apparent reason. He was blind, just because that would be cool, I guess. I don't know, like just for the story sake, some. It kind of reminds me of that. Like, it's just like you have this really talented like lead, and the whole thing is just wasted.
I even think John Slattery, the director of God's Pocket, I even think he's talented. Like, there are flashes that you can tell that he's capable, that he has stuff in him. And this is his feature debut, and there's talent there for sure. But there are times when you look at PSH's eyes, you just look into his eyes, and he just looks miserable. He looks like, not because his character is miserable. He looks miserable because he's in the film.
Wow.
Yeah, it's painful. Easily my worst.
Wow. Okay.
So, Dustin, you might have already revealed your next pick with your shit talking of Cold Comes the Night. But...
No. Actually, that was just really? I could have put that on there because it would have fallen within all the guidelines and whatnot. But actually, kind of go on the same line. If you want to talk about all-star cast and a letdown. This is a little bit more mainstream or whatever, but it was terrible, and it was The Monuments Men.
Oh.
I absolutely despise this film. The biggest crime of the film doesn't even lie within the story of Nazis stealing the masterpieces of art. It's literally the waste of incredible talent of a stellar cast. I mean, you can't hardly top George Clooney, Matt Damon, Bill Murray, Cate Blanchett, John Goodman. It's just like, are you kidding me? You just wouldn't expect the film to be so dull and boring, and that's exactly what it is. It's weird because it actually features a rather fascinating story, true story about a group of men who are tasked to rescue these masterpieces of art from the Nazis in World War II. And it's just like the film focuses on telling the audience how important this event was, and that's all that the focus is. And by doing so, I think it forgets how important storytelling is. And it's just like, there's nothing about the film that's really that interesting other than they keep reinforcing how important it is. And it's a total waste of cast, a waste of resources, because the people have no room to breathe. These are really talented people, and it was a totally boring watch. I never thought it would be boring with everything, with the people involved and the story involved. This should have been an easy opportunity to be something really good, and it was terrible.
I think I remember the movie was supposed to come out last fall for the awards race, and then they pushed it back to.
And I think maybe they realized maybe test audiences or what. But
yeah, they all came out and said like, they said no, it's because of this and this and this. It works. Yep. I remember that. They used the Shutter Island excuse because Shutter Island did the same thing. It got pushed from award season to the winter, but it made lots of money, and they said it was like that. And then it came out, and everyone was like, "Oh no, it's bad."
See, I still liked Shutter Island. I mean, I understand maybe why they did that.
The strategy,
but and I remember when that happened too. Because when you hear the cast and it's George Clooney, and I guess maybe he's hit or miss as a director because he directed this film as well as starred in it. But he's done some pretty decent stuff too as a director, and he's just. I don't know what to say other than it was really boring. Have you guys seen the film?
No.
Nope.
Wow, I thought for sure interest. You guys would have seen that one.
I have zero. I like George Clooney, but he's such a mixed bag as a director in my eyes. I had no interest in this one.
Okay.
Even Bill Murray couldn't save it. So.
Wow, that's I mean, I partly watched it because of John Goodman and Bill Murray, and it's just like. Not even worth the time. It's so boring. And again, the people can be suckers for true stories and like history and like there's all this stuff that has going for it, and it's a total letdown. One of the worst films of the year.
What a bummer. And now let's go on to CJ's next pick, The Grand Budapest Hotel by Wes Anderson.
Whoa.
No.
No, never mind. My mistake.
I was going to say,
what? I like that movie.
Me
However,
too. I'm joking.
My next pick I know it will get some complaints. Another movie I saw, Tiff. This is the movie Like Father, Like Son.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Hirokazu Korida. It has a good, like, I would say maybe high concept, just snappy kind of log line. This rich family realizes that, they get a call from the hospital to find out that their 8-year-old son is actually not theirs. A nurse accidentally swapped their kid with another in the hospital on the day of the kid's birth. So then they have to get in contact with the family. The family that was accidentally swapped with is actually like a low middle class family, a working class family is actually more accurate. And it's about kind of the, how they have to approach the situation. Do they keep the kids? Do they switch them because it's their own child? That kind of stuff. So it introduces a kind of like an interesting, like emotionally gripping concept about, how much value does blood have in a relationship, love and all that. I was interested in the concept. I wanted to see where it went, especially when it won the jury prize at Cannes and got all this praise and stuff. But for me, it's like the director, within the first 5-10 minutes, he picks a side already. He establishes one. He's like, okay, blood doesn't matter, love is love, blah, blah. And then you spend 2 hours with the main character just slowly catching up to the director's, like, slowly realizing on his own.
I see.
And it bored me so much because I was just like, the way I put it is, this movie's like pre-chewed food. It's done for you. All the work is done. I'm just sitting there and I'm taking it in and I'm just watching it so passively. Like, I want to do a little work. I want to kind of explore the theme a little bit. Maybe not. I mean, I don't know. That's why I didn't like it, because it really just picked a side, and also I didn't like the fact that the father was the only one who really, the rich father was the only one who actually, like, had an opinion that everyone else was fine with it. They were like, oh no, we love our kid. He was the only one who was like, no. He's like, blood. And yet everyone went along with him, which annoyed the shit out of me.
I don't know. I would disagree and say that he didn't explore it. I think he explored both sides all right. I mean, you don't find... It's been a while. I mean, it's been over a year since I've seen it, because I did see it at Cannes, and I haven't rewatched it yet. I do want to, because I liked it so much at Cannes, and I want to make sure that still holds up. But I don't remember when you find that out. It's pretty early in the film, but I feel like he does still establish the fact that, like, there's still an argument to be made. And I think what I liked about it so much, it was like there's this big sort of, universal debate, whether like a nature versus nurture, and that's exactly sort of what the film is about. And I think it's interesting. Yeah, I see what you're saying about maybe the director picked his side from the very beginning, which is understandable. But at the same time, I don't know. I thought it.
At the same time, you're wrong.
I thought it brought up some interesting, the age-old debate of nature versus nurture, kind of.
I mean, but to me, it wasn't a debate. It wasn't a discussion. The only person who gives the point of view about the nature over nurture is the main guy's asshole dad, who is like, that's the reason why he's so, like, basically they just go, oh, this guy's dad is an asshole. He has daddy issues. That's why he, doesn't accept, the whole nurture over nature.
Yeah.
I would say, too, what I was more into was the class relation theme going
That's
on.
a huge theme that they explored.
Yeah, the tensions, that was the only one that I was kind of into. But
and it's beautifully filmed. I mean, you can't almost argue that.
It's nicely filmed. I don't have anything against Korida. I mean, I like Still Walking, but, this one, like I said, it's no, like, Steven Spielberg was the president of the jury when Cannes gave out the award, and I just felt
and you hate Steven Spielberg, so I think
Spielberg.
that's the reason why you hate this film.
That's what I do.
He loved this film, so you automatically hate it.
I was just like, you know what, this is why Steven Spielberg loved it, because it's a movie that answers everything for you, and it doesn't let you do, it doesn't...
But it's so unlike any Steven Spielberg. I mean, I guess I see what you're saying, but at the same time, it's just like, This is not even close to. There's like no CGI at all or high concept.
I'm not comparing to Spielberg. I'm just saying they have the same aspect in common, which is their movies are the kinds of films where, well, not their movies.
The work's done for you, kind of type of thing.
It's just you watch it and it's done, and there's nothing to take with it. I like movies where I can think it over, chew on it. This one, and
I'll give you that. I'll definitely give you that. I mean, there's a side that the director picks. I mean, he's not necessarily supposed to be unbiased. It's not a documentary, but I would agree with that in the fact that I see that argument a little bit where you're not maybe given you're kind of pushed to lean towards how to feel.
And I'm not saying also that I think the director should have made, ambiguity or not clearly define something, because, I agree with what the director says in the movie. I agree with that point about how, the nature doesn't matter and all that, but it's the way he goes about it. It's not so much he shouldn't have done it, it's the way he did. I didn't like the way he did it.
Okay. All right, what about you, CJ? We got to move on.
Bernard, you mean?
Bernard, yeah, sorry.
We got to move on. We got to move on to this. Okay, so with my pick, this is not like a terrible movie. This was just like a kind of a big letdown for me because I was so excited for this one. This is another mainstream one, like Labor Day. Fucking Godzilla.
Oh, wow.
I'm glad you made it out of there. By the way, I saw the movie and I was really worried for you after I saw what you did in San Francisco. So I'm glad you made it out.
I got out. Yeah, I got into those subways that Elizabeth Olsen got into. Yeah, man. Like, she goes in a subway.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
She does go to subway.
She goes in the subway in San Francisco. Okay.
Yeah.
Aaron Taylor Johnson's a fucking potato in that movie. Anyway.
Listen. Everyone's familiar with Godzilla. I don't think I have to explain what Godzilla is about. But my personal experience with Godzilla was Gareth Edwards. I quite enjoyed Monsters. I thought that was a well-made film. I thought it was a perfect fit for filmmaker and property. I thought it's interesting. It's an interesting pick. It's not a kind of shoehorn thing. But then I saw the fucking trailer with Bryan Cranston yelling really loud. And I was in. I don't need much more than that. If you show Bryan Cranston yelling really loud, like I was kind of in with the Godzilla thing. I'm cautiously optimistic. No, I was more just cautious following the last Godzilla movie, American Godzilla movie. But for this one, what put it over the top was Bryan Cranston yelling. I was like, all right. Because my problem with these kind of films, like the Transformer film, is that I'd rather have, in those Transformer films, I'd rather have the Transformers be the main characters. Like, I'd rather just have an entire film with just Transformers, talking and fighting to each other. Like, fuck the human, I don't care about the people. In Godzilla, I thought, okay, they put Bryan Cranston in that human role. He can do that. He's capable of that. And he was all right in the movie. But then we have this other human character played by Aaron Taylor Johnson.
He's a fucking potato. He's a
potato. He takes this steaming pile of shit for like most of the movie, and I couldn't take it. CJ, I wanted to run out of there. Like Godzilla peeked his head into the theater and was going to blow that fire in our faces. Like that, I wanted to get out of there. I couldn't take it, and I never use. And you can go back to other of our millions of episodes of Way Too Indie Hangout. I never use, or any of my reviews, I never use the word boring. I don't use it, and I'm not going to use it now. But I was pretty close, man. I was pretty close. Like I never left a movie, but it saved me at the end. I didn't walk out of the theater because the monster started fighting, and it was pretty awesome. So not a terrible movie, but
you know what? I watched it too. I mean, I didn't dislike it as much as you did. I think that part of what saves it is Gareth Edwards. I think that he adds a level of direction to it that is better than most big blockbuster movies like that.
Sure.
But it's absolutely a flawed movie, and that's because it's and a little aside, I fucking hate this bullshit like argument by people. There was that article came out. It's a post-human movie because it's really not about the humans. It's like, fuck you, okay?
Oh my God!
Is it not about the humans? Then why do you have a fucking hour of Bryan Cranston and his family? And why do you keep your fucking attention on Aaron Taylor Johnson when he is horrible in this movie?
And what the fuck is Elizabeth Olsen doing in this movie? What is she doing?
She was like, oh, we need a woman. There, like, it was just such. All the women in the movie were terribly written.
Well, yeah.
Elizabeth Olsen.
What do they do? What is she doing in that movie?
Nothing.
She's great. She's amazing. She's an amazing actress.
She's a crying wife, and then you have Sally Hawkins, who just translates Ken Watanabe, I guess, or just like agrees with him, and she's great and she's wasted. And then you have Juliette Binoche, who
it's tragic. It's tragic.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of issues with the movie. I think that
there are some breathtaking shots.
Yes,
there are some breathtaking shots.
Yes, that's what saves it. You have a lot of and to me, I compare this to Pacific Rim. I like this slightly more than Pacific Rim. I think what this movie does that movie doesn't is it properly gives across a sense of scale. And that's because, one, Godzilla's not fighting in the fucking ocean for the entire movie like in Pacific Rim. And it, like, so you actually get a sense of, like, holy shit, these things are huge, and people are so tiny. There's a comment I remember in a review I read that I liked where it said, it seems like Godzilla's in his own movie, doing his own thing.
Interesting. A disconnect.
Which that's something I like, but still, like, it's just it gets thrown down the drain because they put so much time on these shitty underwritten characters that are just, and Aaron Taylor Johnson, like, what the hell?
What's he doing, man? Like, and he gets so much screen time, so much.
I can't remember a single line he said in that movie. I can't remember a single word he said because he
probably said Dad,
or oh, it's Godzilla.
Yeah, that's my favorite line in the movie. It's Godzilla.
When I watched the movie in the theater, when Ken Watanabe, he finally, they do the big exposition on Godzilla, and he goes, we call him Gojira. Then every other audience is like, oh, and they start moving. So every time after he said, like, whenever he said it again, I just turned to my friend and be like, oh.
Well, you know, again, like what I said at the beginning of my introduction of this pick, it's not a terrible movie. It's not. You know, it's well crafted. It's a well crafted movie. There's some gorgeous stuff in there. Cranston does good work. You know, he's convincing. But big letdown.
It's frustratingly, it's not a good movie, but it's frustrating because it has a lot of elements to make it a good movie. And it just, you know, there's shit there that really just stops it, and I really would have preferred, you know.
You know, it's worth it to see Juliette Binoche and Bryan Cranston acting together, though.
Yeah, that should happen more often.
You know, like those two, dang.
It sounds like Bryan Cranston just has not had good luck this year with picking films. After Breaking Bad, he's kind of just been in some duds.
Godzilla made an ass ton of money, so.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Quality-wise.
Speaking as a San Francisco Bay Area native, like, looked like San Francisco. Can't hate on it. Like, it looked like San Francisco. I watched it, not in San Francisco, but close, and it looked good, man. No one was complaining in the theater. It looked great. All right, okay. So what do you think, guys? We got more hate to spew. How about some quick hits? Quick hits?
Quick hits. My least favorite of the year is Almost Human.
Oh, let's go into it. No, let's go into this. Sorry. Okay. Forget the quick hits. CJ, I need to hear this because I watched that too, and I'm so with you. I'm so with you on this one.
And you know what? It would be a quick hit because honestly, like, what is there to say? It's just a bad movie. It's just shitty writing, shitty directing, shitty acting. To me, it's like, yes. I find it funny, too, that I think the director is like, he wasn't even born in the 80s, and yet he's made this nostalgic 80s movie.
No, he wasn't born in the 80s?
I think he was born in 90. Like, I remember reading about that. Because I remember it played at TIFF at Midnight Madness, and it got a bunch of good reviews, which is why I wanted to watch it. And someone mentioned that it's very 80s, but the director is not even born in the 80s. But to me, it shows so much. Like, it's just this... And to me, it's like, if you want to make a movie that has a lot of genre homages, like a genre pastiche, that's what I said in my review, you know, you got to have a bit of confidence or swagger. He doesn't have it. Director just doesn't have it. So it just comes across like bad, bland ripoffs.
It's strange, yeah. It feels like he's emulating as opposed to paying homage.
Yeah, it's not.
You know?
And a lot of it is just like this. The violence and all of the gore is just kind of like this. Oh, like sick, bro. Like this is gonna be sweet. Like that type of like shitty. Like let's throw it in there because it's gross. And there's like the one big scene, and I don't like it at all. I just, like I said, I mean, the other movies I can discuss about why I didn't like it. This one is just plain bad.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of like Midnight Madness films, going back to TIFF, my other film that I had, which I know you've seen, CJ, I don't know about you, Bernard, but it's The Sacrament. I thought it was total crap.
Yeah.
I reviewed it on the site. I did a capsule review.
Yeah, and so did the CJ.
And Ananda.
And Ananda.
Wow, we got a lot of capsules on that.
No, she did a full
She did a full review. Yeah, sorry, right. She did more recently a full review for the release. You guys both did your capsules. And now, CJ, you gave it a lot of praise when you initially saw it. I thought it was super, super weak. The found footage aspect it falls in the trap of the genre by forcing excuses for the camera to be held, and like in times where there's no reason for someone to be filming it. Like it starts kind of like smart, and there's kind of a reason for them to film. I guess if you're not familiar with the story, it's essentially Jonestown. I mean, that's essentially what it is, but it never acknowledges that, right? Like it never, like, it's like this weird like modern take, but it never sort of acknowledges it, but it's exactly like what the true life events, happened. And that's
I don't know if you mean it doesn't directly reference it.
No, but it's Jonestown.
It's
Jonestown, but like it doesn't say like, based loosely off a true story. It doesn't bill itself to be anything. Like, it actually bills itself to be like this actual found footage. I mean,
don't get me wrong. I'm with you. I really didn't like that movie, but I think it's pretty clear what they're inspired by. What that movie is inspired by.
Kind of. Yeah.
There are people who surprisingly don't know about Jonestown.
Right.
I mean that's so it doesn't explicitly acknowledge it. It's kind of like a modern day Jonestown. But if you know about Jonestown at all and you watch it, they're doing beat for beat everything that happens.
Yeah, but they try to put this like new spin on it, like there's Vice and it's all updated and all this stuff, and it's just like, well, that's kind of what makes it creepy, because this actually happened, but some people might not even get that, and I don't know, like I just felt like it was kind of bizarre, and that's kind of actually part of the downfall too, is because if you know the history, you kind of know exactly what's going to happen. Like you said, beat for beat, what's going to happen, and like I was just totally let down. Like I didn't think it was scary. I thought that was creepy, only the fact because it really happened, but it didn't bill itself on that it really happened, other than it tried to bill itself as a sort of a found footage. I don't know.
I'll say really quick, because I should go on the record about this, because when I did see it at TIFF, I kind of really wanted to like it. I did give it like a decent positive review. Yes, I love Ty West. I think he's like probably the best American horror director working now with Jim Mickle. But anyway,
oh god,
I think to me, like when I initially I was like, yeah, it's good, but then I told you, Dustin, I said it aged like an open jar of mayo. Like it got so I just the longer time went on, it didn't take very long. I was like this. It's like, this isn't good. One, the Jonestown aspect is kind of tasteless in my opinion. Like, Jonestown didn't happen that long ago. You got people who are still living and that went through that. So I think it's the fact that he did it like directly is what kind of makes it tasteless for me. If you use inspiration to go.
He's like, let me tell this story exactly like what happened, but I'm gonna make it a found footage, and then they not like sort of say, well, this was a tragedy, and this is kind of based on that, but this is the horror of what it represents. And it's just like, well, he didn't do any of that. I mean, he just kind of like tried to. He did. It's not like he passed it. He didn't come out and say, "Oh, this is an original story." But then he also didn't say that this is almost exactly a repeat of something that's already happened in history.
I don't think that's necessarily. I mean,
I don't know if it's
Jonestown
necessary.
I don't think that's necessary. I think it's Jonestown. People know who it. I'm surprised that a lot of people didn't know, but I think maybe he assumed that people would just know about the history of it. But another thing to me is like what I did like when I first watched it, and I still think is admirable is the way that he was using long takes in the movie. I liked the best example is that one static shot when I don't want to get into it, but someone is kind of against their will injected with something, and he lets the whole thing play out for a long time, and that was like really disturbing to me. But other than that, yeah, I think that it's a really weak movie, and I said it somewhere else, but I think Eli Roth ruins everything. Eli Roth produced this. Eli Roth is a hack, and he fucked up Ty West, so I blame him.
You blame him for Ty West's job.
Yeah.
Well, I think the inherent challenge for found footage, and found footage, I think I've said this on another podcast, but or hangout. Found footage films they have this big challenge where you kind of always have to shoehorn in reasons why they're filming, right? And actually, I try to be kind of forgiving on that, because it's an almost impossible feat. I think there's room for forgiveness for that. And actually, this movie was only distracting in a couple instances, which is pretty good for me, because found footage is not my is one of my least favorite subgenres. I think Blair Witch did it best, and it hasn't been succeeded since. I think that's a great movie, and I don't think anything better has come out since. So it's an almost inherently flawed subgenre for me, and this one, is it's another. This is, I think, the running theme here is the tragedy of it all, because everyone's talented in these projects. Everyone's talented. Ty West is amazing. Swanberg's in this again. Cy Metz is the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen. Like, she's she's incredible. I love the cast of this movie. I love all those guys who work in Ty West's circle. And this one I think was uninspired. I know that's ironic to say that.
And the guy special. I mean, we should mention the guy who plays the actual cult leader is good.
He's the best part of the movie.
He's great. That interview sequence is like he sells it.
He is
wonderful.
Good, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah.
But
really
still,
good.
it just doesn't come together at all.
No. Yeah.
And we can get into found footage too another time, because I have issues with it too. I think when it works, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But the key is immersion. You need to immerse people in it, and that's like what you said. If you can't immerse people, then you're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to keep that up the whole time, and and I'm forgiving. Like, I think most people aren't. I think most audiences, when they go into a movie, are kind of cynical and looking to poke holes in the logistics of it all, especially in a found footage movie. But like I said, I'm pretty forgiving in this one. Still, illusion was broken.
Yeah, there's a couple of times where, like, I'm the same way. Like, I will forgive, some minor things, and okay, well, there's a reason why, but it's kind of contrived, for you to use the excuses. But there was times where I literally was like, why, like, what's happening here? Like, why would someone actually be filming this in this way and panning this long and doing this when this is happening? And it was just like, well, it took me out of the element when I tried not for it too, but it was almost impossible to in certain moments in this film.
All right. Well, I am sadly going to leave all of you wonderful readers and viewers of Way2Indie.com's Hangout. CJ and Dustin are going to get into our Watch This segment. I look forward to watching it. I'm sorry I couldn't be a part of it, but I don't think I'd add much. You guys just duke it out. Keep your fists up. Go at it. I hope that you guys disagree on every single bit of these two movies. That's my hope.
Oh, boy. All right.
All right. Well, good luck, you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, Way Too Indie fans.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a segment that CJ actually started, or had thought of, which is a really cool idea where we're going to call it Watch This for the time being. Essentially, it's we both recommend a film to the other person, and then we kind of discuss it. Doesn't have to be like a great film. These happen to be both the films that we recommended to each other happen to be films that we did like, but I didn't necessarily love mine, and I don't know if you necessarily loved yours, but they were worth watching, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on this film and vice versa. So we can get into it first if you want to introduce the film that you wanted me to watch.
I'll introduce. First, these are also films that we both reviewed on the website.
Yeah.
So if you want to go on the website after and take a look, we both gave our reviews. So, yeah, the general purpose of this, and it's something that we're hoping to maybe do in the future and expand out, is we're going to each pick a movie we're going to pick a writer, another writer on the podcast, recommend a movie to them that we particularly like, and then the next time we come in for another hangout, then we're all going to share each other's thoughts on the films. have a discussion. So the one I recommended you was Lucas Moodyson's We Are the Best. It just came out at the end of May. It is doing quite well. I think it has like an 88 on Metacritic. It has like a 99 or 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's this highly praised movie. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as other people did, but the film essentially takes place in Stockholm in 1982. There are these two girls, Bobo and Clara, who they are punks at a time when punk is dead. You know, people are moving on to more like the Human League or Joy Division. And they basically, on a whim, decide to start a band. And then in doing so, they recruit a third member, who's an outcast at the school, named Hedvig. She's a Christian, which is partially why she's an outcast, or it's implied, but she's also an incredible guitar player. So they recruit her, and then she ends up becoming friends with them. And I'll start with my thoughts. I think that what I liked about it so much is also what held it back for me from being a great film, which is it's incredibly lightweight, it's incredibly carefree. There isn't much of a narrative. It's just kind of dropping in on these girls at a very specific moment in their lives, which might not seem especially important, but you know, you can tell that these experiences will help shape them as they get older. I think the three girls are fantastic. I just think it's a really fun, hard to dislike movie, which is why I recommend it to you, Dustin. I told you that it reminded me of Francis Ha. Not that they're similar, but just that it's a film to me that just seems really hard to dislike. So,
yeah, and I would agree. Like, that was a really good analogy because it is kind of. It's hard not to at least enjoy. It's light, it's breezy. It's kind of like I mentioned the Happy Christmas Joe Swanberg film, where it's just like there's not much to dislike. There's maybe not necessarily a lot to like, but it's hard to kind of pick the faults here because, you know, you're right. It was pretty well acted by three, you know, young ladies who are, you know, just really good in the film. And I probably liked it a little bit less than you, which is maybe quite a bit less than like what a lot of the praise it's getting. I mean, I thought it was a decent watch. I didn't feel like I wasted my time. There was some aspects like the whole like you know, the whole Christian thing. They sort of, I don't know, like I felt like they spent a lot of time sort of on that aspect. There, you know, basically there's two punks who are basically trying to recruit one of them who's kind of a pretty religious upbringing gal, and they sort of bring her into the band. She's talented, they're really not, but they want to bring her in because of her talents. And I don't know, if anything, and it's hard to point like too many faults, but if anything, I might have felt like they spent a lot of time trying to work in like the fact that these two are, I don't know, would you say that they're atheists?
Well, what happens is Clara, the one with the mohawk, she's definitely atheist. She wants to make Hedvig become an atheist.
Right.
But when they have a discussion, and then Bobo reveals that she's more agnostic.
That's right. Yeah,
that she leave it there.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that was maybe my only thing was like, I love the fact that, you know, the story sort of interests me. I went through a punk phase. I like punk. And so this whole thing, like, it was really cool. It's a coming of age story that's really well told. It's about, you know, some outcasts. And I liked it. It's hard to dislike. I probably, again, liked it maybe a little bit less than you, but I didn't feel like it was a total waste of my time. So I'm glad that, you know, you recommended it to me. And I'm kind of shocked that it's getting maybe as much high praise. I mean, it's good, but I don't know if it's that good, in my opinion. But
I think it's you see, I don't like grouping in with this. I personally classify certain films every year as being a certain group. This one I think is better than those, but I think it'll be a good descriptor anyways. There are a lot of films I see that they get very high praise from critics, but it doesn't mean they're great movies. I think that they're just mostly faultless films.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's nothing especially wrong with it, but what it does is not. What it does is not especially great or extraordinary.
Great about it, yeah.
A good example would be Iloilo, the one that you liked. I like it. Good movie, but it wasn't, you know, it didn't have that thing there, but it has such high critics ratings because it's hard to really find fault with it. It does what it does. It does it well enough, but that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we go back to Francis Ha. That was a good example. I mean, there are people who don't like it, and if you can't get into the characters, I suppose. But there's just so it's funny. It hits the comedic, tones that it tried and set out to do, and you sort of went along with it. And it's hard to pick the faults, but yeah, good movie. Worth a watch. Would I recommend to some people? I'd recommend to some people, not everyone, I guess, is what I would probably kind of boil it down to.
I reckon, because I think the movie has just it's very charming, and I think that most people would enjoy it. So I mean, I noticed that the critics may like it a lot. I've noticed that you and some other people I've recommended to, they have similar things. They like it, but they're not especially high on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I recommend it to anyone who finds it. They find the material interesting, because it is just it's a very good crowd pleaser.
Yeah, it's a good coming of age. Essentially is what it kind of comes down to. So, well, should we get into my pick then? We might have a little bit more of a difference of opinion on mine. I feel like.
Maybe.
The film that I recommended to CJ was Some Velvet Morning. I'm going to have some trouble pronouncing the director's name. You're going to probably get it.
Neil LaBute.
Neil LaBute. Okay, all right. Neil LaBute. He has a lot of a theater background, and once you watch the film, it'll be pretty evident that that's the case, because the whole film takes place essentially in one location, which is Alice Eve's home. She basically, when we're introduced to her at the very beginning of the film, she gets a knock at her door, and it's Stanley Tucci, and he is a former partner. It's never really explained, but they've been together, and it's been some years since they've been together. But they had some sort of falling out where she's surprised to see him. He has his luggage with him, and she thinks that maybe he's between sort of flights or whatever, and then he stopped by to sort of say hi and catch up. It's been a few years, and they had once something going, one of those type of things, and he kind of makes it clear that he just broke it off with his wife, and I don't know, he doesn't really necessarily give a solid answer, and I think that's actually what I liked about the film, because the whole film has something slightly off about it. There's something that's not quite right. There's something that is said, and it's very much, they give you subtle clues and hints, but nothing's spelled out. And actually, that's one of the main reasons why I like the film. You can see my review on Way Too Indie. I did enjoy it. I think I gave it like a 7.7 or something like that on the site out of 10. But for the reason why I liked it so much is it's almost like it whispers the entire time. And what that made me do as a viewer is it made me like lean in and listen. And I was just really hypnotized, and I was sort of really paying attention to all these things, because it was such a interesting concept. It's very easy and very simple, but there was something off. I knew something was going to happen. There was some moments that you're just like, what the heck's going on? And he gets really aggressive in some moments, but then he'll back down and sort of be relaxed, and something's just not right. And there's a big twist at the end, which it would be a shame to really sort of divulge, but it's really going to divide audiences. I'm kind of curious to, I guess, see what your thoughts are on the film.
Yeah. So I think what maybe pulled you in didn't pull me in as much. I think that Stanley Tucci and Alice Eve are both great. I mean, Stanley Tucci naturally is great. I've only seen Alice Eve in that one movie, Star Trek 2, which I mean, I don't blame her for that movie. But no, she's good in this. I think that Neil LaBute, he has this reputation. You're right. He's a playwright, but he's made what does he direct? He directed the infamous Wicker Man remake with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
that's more of an outlier. That's more of an outlier of his career. He did Lakeview Terrace with Samuel L. Jackson. I think his highly praised movie is In the Company of Men with Aaron Eckhart from years back.
Yeah, or The Shape of Things, one of the two.
The Shape of Things, yeah. There's another one there. I forget the title, but it was that one had
Possession.
No, it was
Ben
Stiller was in it, I think. I forget.
Oh, okay. Because Aaron Eckhart and Gwyneth Paltrow are in Possession. I don't know if you've seen that one. That was like 2000, early 2000s. But
I didn't see that one. I didn't know Labute made that one. But anyway, so I think, but for me, it was kind of a mild curiosity. It wasn't so much of me being super involved. It was kind of like, he has enough. Labute writes it, well enough, and like I said, Tucci and Eve are great.
Mm-hmm.
But there's enough, like things going on. Like you've mentioned, they have examples for there are outbursts or irrational behavior, or people say something, or.
But it's really like in spurts.
Yeah, it comes. It goes.
It's just like all of a sudden he'll like I just remember one scene, and I'm sure you remember it too. I don't know, maybe halfway through, maybe less, somewhere in there, where they have an argument, and he basically, but it's not like a shouting argument. It's just sort of like a disagreement, maybe you would label it as. But he gets really frustrated, picks something up, and like throws it across the room. He gets very aggressive in some moments, and it really kind of, I don't know, startled me, I guess. And it was just like, man, there's something there. There's a history. There's something that he's not telling. And you're right, that drew me in, and maybe didn't draw you in.
The reason why I think it didn't really pull me in was because I think, and this will tie into the ending, which we have to tiptoe around, but their roles, Stanley Tucci and Alcée's roles in the film are, to me, very generic. You have Stanley Tucci as the kind of aggressive male, constantly trying to exert or show his control through aggression, through control, through power. Alcée Eve is, she the red dress and everything is like totally picked because he wants Labute probably wants her to emulate kind of the icy blonde that you see in movies. She's more of a emotional. She toys with him emotionally, brings up his son and
there's a weird thing there.
And, that type of stuff. To me, those roles, seeing that, it's like, okay, these types of characters are really kind of standard. It's not exactly, Labute isn't really, he's not really, doing something subversive or breaking new ground or giving an interesting spin on these types of characters. It's just kind of like, okay, well, I know these types right away. Sure. And saying that, when you get to the ending, which I personally, I had to think on it, but I think it's just I call it an empty provocation. It's just to me it was just a completely empty gesture. At the end, it didn't add up to anything. I think he was just kind of throwing it in as a kind of I feel like in a way it's a cop out from all the setup he did, from everything he did beforehand. He has these characters, he establishes them, and then he does something that kind of just goes, okay, and he's kind of making a more general comment of just kind of like, well, see, it's hard to tiptoe around, but just kind of...
It is hard, yeah. I don't know, I guess I see what you're saying. I don't know if I agree with it, only because I think it makes a lot of sense at the end, and then when you know what's sort of going on, I think it explains everything that came before it in a way, yeah. I could see it's such a big, I guess, twist or whatever you want to call it, that it might feel cheap and it might feel kind of gimmicky, I guess is the way I kind of described it in the review. And I can agree, like I could say that could be, that's kind of the definition of gimmicky, as how he ends it, the big twist or whatever. And I get that. But I don't know, I guess for some reason that didn't really bother me so much. But it's hard to, again, disagree that it's not, sort of cheap, I guess, in a way.
To me, it's he's doing he kind of redefines it to make it a movie about commenting on gender roles.
Yeah.
The way what women are boxed into, what men are boxed into, that type of thing. But
yeah, and I could see a lot of like maybe feminists who don't particularly like it.
And in the end, he does. There's a very subtle hint, especially the final, the very last shot. That
I know exactly what you're talking about with her.
It's implied that like they may be, these gender roles may be choices on their end, but it may not. Like it's saying that it could be a choice, but it's only a perceived choice. And
I can see a lot of people like I said, feminists having to really picking that thing up and. Yeah, I can see that being a pretty big issue for some people.
But to me, it just didn't. it didn't amount to anything. It was just kind of like, okay, you have like it's a shock, you know. We go,
Yeah,
oh,
it's a shock ending
but
for
for
sure.
me, it was like there was just that was it. There was nothing else after. It just kind of sat there. I felt like it was kind of I did feel like a bit of a cop out to me.
Yeah, and I get that. Yeah, and I agree. I think it kind of is. It's a huge shock, and with such a huge shock like that, I mean, you're going to divide audiences. Essentially, that's the best way to describe it. And without going into detail, it's kind of hard. But I feel like you'd have people on two sides of the fence, and you're either that ending is either gonna maybe not blow you away per se, but you're either gonna accept it or you're gonna just like totally hate it. And I guess maybe you're not quite like that. I don't know. I don't know if you.
I'm actually, it's
It
funny.
didn't ruin the film for you.
No, not at all. I actually.
And I could see it ruining the film for.
I literally.
I don't know.
I knew nothing about the film. Going
Which I think is good.
Other than the general plot about Stanley Tucci kind of leaving his wife to show up at
Sure.
Alice Eve's place,
Yep.
and that there was a divisive ending, but I mean, divisive ending could have meant anything.
Anything, yeah.
Right. Like in the end he could have. I won't give examples.
I think I heard that though too. I think when I went into it, I don't know if it played at Sundance or where. I think it was Tribeca. Okay. So I remember just reading headlines. I try not to go into too much detail before going into a film, but I think I did read headlines too. Like, this is a very slow burner with the kind of a twist ending, and that's essentially what I knew going in as well. That I kind of knew that there wasn't a lot going on, and I kind of knew that there might be this sort of kind of a big shocker ending, and so those were kind of the two things I knew, going in, and I think that's the perfect amount to know going in. There's not really a whole lot else, really. I mean, you described the whole film essentially, is that there's not much that goes on, there's not much backstory really, and there is a kind of a big twist, a big shocker.
And he does, and I mean, the other thing is, he kind of, he does kind of cover exposition, ekes out backstory slowly.
A little bit, yeah, slowly but surely.
At the beginning, it's pretty, very awkward. However,
yeah.
After the ending, that might actually, that might explain.
It makes a lot, and that's why I like the ending. It's still, I agree that it's gimmicky, perhaps, but like for me, then it wasn't like it was just thrown in there just to be thrown in there. I think it does answer some questions, and it is sort of, it does kind of explain some of those awkward moments before it.
I think it recontextualizes everything. It puts everything before it into context.
Yes.
So a lot of things you may have been wondering,
whether you agree with it or not is another story.
That's what it does. But like that's the thing. It's really a matter of. And
it's going to make some people really upset. That's the bottom line.
The other thing is the twist is just, it's also crazy implausible. Like, it really makes, like, come on. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but can you really believe that this situation is happening for so long, and they're so good at,
Yeah, I see. I mean, it is. Yeah, it's a 2-hour. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's like it's 80 minutes, but it's it's implausible. But I mean, that
sure.
to me is just nitpicking. I know that he's not. I don't think Neil Abute is going for something realistic here. He's using that as a
totally. And like, I could totally see it being a play, or you can totally at least see that he was a former playwright.
Surprisingly, it was. I thought it would have been a stage adaptation. Not at all. He wrote it.
Right. Yeah, but like, there's a lot. I mean, there's 2 actors. There's no one else in the film. Mm-hmm. It's basically in one location. They do kind of. They go outside for a very short period of time, but otherwise it's essentially in a living room and a bedroom. The entire time. And that's it. Like, it'd be very easy to adapt into a play. Not that it'd be a terribly exciting one, but like, it's easy to kind of see those ties. You could see where like his background really played, a lot with it. But yeah, it wasn't based on a play, and as far as I know, I don't think he's making it a play, but. It wouldn't be that hard, I don't think, to...
It's funny, though, because, I mean, you mentioned, and we both say, it's a divisive film. The ending will divide people. People will hate it.
Oh, totally.
It's funny because, for me, I have more of a cooled-off reaction. I think if we, giving on the Sight rating scale, you gave it 7.7, I probably give it something maybe closer to a 6, or between a 5.5 and a 6 myself. Because, it's... As much as I have my disagreements with it, at least... I'll mention another review because they put it better. It's still an experience. You know, it's still him doing something, trying something, and that's definitely something that a lot of people don't do. So I have an appreciation just on that level that, you know, I mean, even though I don't like or disagree with certain aspects, he's at least doing something that's, you know, not.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that I was into. I was surprised how into it I was, how hypnotic it was. For there really to be nothing going. I mean, essentially what it is like an argument between two people for 80 minutes or whatever, like from beginning to end, about two people who once had a thing. And like, I don't know, it's just saying that, like, I don't know, for me, I wouldn't think that would be something I could totally just be invested in the entire time. And I guess I kind of was. Like, I was kind of waiting for something big to happen, and there are some things, and something big does eventually happen, and I don't know. Yeah, I was just surprised to think more than anything.
When it happened, you know, when the ending happened, that the final thing happened, did you were you like oh my god, like?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a shocker. I mean, yeah, I knew going in that there might have been this big thing and sort of this big twist. And, you know, I'm a sucker for a big twist, you know, so, like, I know that. So I probably liked it a lot and knew that there was going to be one. And having said that, though, it still sort of exceeded what I thought would be the case. I thought there might be some... I kind of had my own theories going along, what might have, you know, what crazy event might happen. And, yeah, I was kind of like, holy cow. I could easily see how people are going to be extremely offended by it. There's something that happens that it's going to really make people upset. And then there's a final, like, sort of unspoken subtlety at the very, very, very end, like closing scene, that you're just like, it could again upset people. There's a few scenes where at the end that could really make people upset. But yeah, well, that's good. I think that was that was a good segment. I think we should continue doing this, recommending films to one another, because we have some different tastes.
I'm thinking next time we'll definitely evolve. You know, the third writer, whoever that is, you know, it could be Bernard, could be Ananda. Or...
Yeah. Next time we'll need to get all three of us involved.
Yeah, all three. We'll do it like a chain. We'll do it like that, and I think we'll expand it out, because I mean, we did, you know, movies we reviewed or more recent films, but I think we should expand it out. You know, like if someone wants to recommend, say, like a classic film or something that's maybe their all-time favorite or something, or something that, you know, maybe, you know, we've become more accustomed to each other's tastes, so, you know, if it's something that maybe outside the other person's boundary, you want to see the reaction.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually thought you might have liked it a little bit more than you did, just because it was kind of slow moving. You kind of typically like those more conversational, just, you know.
Yeah, and I think that was
minimal films.
I think that was part of why I had interest in it, or why it was maintaining interest.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah, no.
Because I can see a lot of people just hating it from before they even get to the ending. Like, people not even making it through because there's not much that goes. I mean, not to go back into the film, but like I just, like, I knew that at least you would be interested enough to sit through the whole thing. And I could see some people, maybe not a lot of people, but some people just not even making it that far, just like totally not enough going on to. You know.
And that's why I think I give the movie a bit of a higher rating or consideration than I do, because it did keep me involved, at least to a certain degree. I wasn't like, you know, I don't think I was bored.
Right, yeah, and that's something that...
At all, I don't think I was bored at all. I was, you know, at least interested in wondering where it was going, but...
Yeah, exactly.
But I can understand, you know, it's some people, they just don't like films that do that at all.
Yeah, that just have not enough action going on. Well, let's just wrap things up here. A lot of what we talked about you can find on waytoindie.com. A lot of the movies we talked about, we have full reviews up. We have news quite a bit now, and all kinds of festival coverage. So be sure to check out the website.
Shall we go over our picks? What was it? I watched Heli, which is going to be going on the site next week. Bernard watched The Fault in Our Stars, which is coming online. His review is coming on online this
tomorrow
week.
Morning. I think he said. Yep. Happy Christmas is what I reviewed.
That's going on next week.
I think it's the 23rd. It might be 2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks. And then our worst films. Mine was Night Moves, Like Father, Like Son, Almost Human. Yours?
Mine was Labor Day, which I have a full review on the site if you want to go and see how I really did not like that film.
Yeah.
The Sacrament, which seemed to have a lot of we have a full review that wasn't that long ago, and then 2 capsule
Capsules.
reviews, and then Monuments Men, which I don't think anyone bothered to review.
It is a
were my
more
picks.
mainstream film, and
Yeah.
I also have a review of Almost Human online, a full review. If you want to see my thoughts on Night Moves and like Father Like Son, you can look back to my TIFF coverage from last year. Bernard's picks were Godzilla, God's Pocket, and the other one is escaping me at the moment. I don't know if he might not actually given a third one.
No, I don't remember.
I
Yeah,
don't think so.
he did.
Yeah. By the way, and then our watch this segment, as we said, was Some Velvet Morning and We Are the Best, which you have the reviews online. Those films are. Did you see Some Velvet Morning's out in theaters now?
Believe so. I think there's the limited release of. I think it's online. I think you could get it through iTunes or
You can get it
VOD.
through iTunes. Right now, We Are the Best is in theaters, and so a limited release most likely. So go
Check it out if you can. It's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, check.
And if it's in the theaters, you'll get a chance to see that one before Some Velvet Morning for sure. We Are the Best. Definitely give it a shot. And you won't be let down. It might not blow you away, but it'll definitely be worth a watch at the very least.
And we won't give our availability for our worst movies because
Yeah, just don't even see those.
Don't watch them.
Don't see them. Maybe The Sacrament, just because it's Ty West and you want to support him. It's good to support, local indie.
Support us. I mean, Kelly Reichardt. I feel bad. No, I see Night Moves. Just Kelly Reichardt needs the.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel bad. I don't want to say don't. I don't want to say it.
Yeah,
I still
exactly.
like Kelly Reichardt.
Well, make sure to follow us on Twitter. The site handle is, of course, at Way Too Indie. You can find me at djansick, Jansick, and CJ, you're going to have to do your spiel. Every time.
It's at Ubudess or OOOBOODESS. It'll change one day.
He'll eventually make it easier. But
3 O's, B, 2 O's, DSS, whatever.
There you go. Yep. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and be on the lookout for our next hangout, which hopefully will be in like a couple of weeks. So we look forward to seeing you again.
Bye-bye.
Swanberg, which my review also will be next week, I believe, or the week after. I have to remember. I think it's the 23rd is when it hits VOD. And it's kind of what you expect from Joe Swanberg if you've ever seen him in his films before. It stars Anna Kendrick from Drinking Buddies, so she kind of returns, but also Leah Dunham from Girls and Mark Webber, who's just awesome. And, of course, Joe Swanberg stars in his own film.
Of course.
What's the movie called?
Happy Christmas.
Okay.
And the setup is as basic as you would expect from a Swanberg film. Essentially, it's 2 young parents who are busy sort of raising their 2-year-old child, who's actually played by Joe Swanberg's actual son. Little fun fact. And they sort of are in their own little thing. They're like 30 years old, and then they get sort of a call from Joe Swanberg, the husband's sister, played by Anna Kendrick, and she just went through a bad breakup. So she's looking for a place to stay, and they welcome into her house, and the sort of they kind of go through a rift as you would expect. She doesn't trust his sister, and he tries to stand up for her, and she's super unresponsible, but they think they might get a babysitter out of the deal. They think they might get some help around the house. They're both professionals. He plays, of course, a filmmaker, and the wife is a novelist who wants to start writing again, and they think this might be an opportunity, but it turns out it might not be, because of her actions. And so it's a really breezy, lighthearted film that doesn't have a big, impactful finish. It's very loose script, as you'd expect. It's very just like improv, heavy dialogue, and but it was worth a watch. It's good for what it is. It's like 78 minutes. It's under 80 minutes. It's really easy to sit through. And especially if you're a fan of anyone who's involved in the film, it's definitely worth a watch. But it's not quite as good as his previous film, Drinking.
That they enjoyed that they'd like the other one to watch, and they're going to have a discussion about that. CJ suggested to Dustin to watch We Are the Best, the Swedish punk rock movie, and Dustin suggested to CJ to watch something about Velvet, right? What was that movie
Some
called?
Velvet Morning.
Some Velvet Morning with
You were
Tucci.
close, actually.
Mr. Tucci. Stanley
Yeah.
Tucci. So they're going to have that conversation to close out the show. But first, to get things started, let's talk about what we've been watching recently. CJ, let's start with you. What have you watched recently?
Okay, so I recently watched, well, this is a bit of a sneak peek because my review will be going up next week. The film Haley, not sure how to pronounce it. It won Best Director at Cannes last year. It's a Mexican film about the title character. He's a young factory worker, married with child, lives with his family. His 12-year-old sister falls in love with a 17-year-old cadet in training. They want to get married, so the cadet decides to steal some drugs from a recent drug bust of the cartel to sell it, and then they can run off together. Naturally, when you see a movie involving the cartel, things don't go so well for people who try and mess with them, especially for Helly. To me, I would say there's a term called artsploitation, which is used for the kind of like an art house geared exploitation movie. If someone asked me to pick like a really good example of an artsploitation movie, I would pick this one.
Nice.
I don't think it's really good. I think that's not a good thing. Artsploitation's not a good thing. It seems to be tailored for the festival circuit. It has these very fixed long shots and a lot of elegant camera work, which is why it probably won Best Director. You have a lot of sudden brutal violence. I mean, there's a scene where a puppy gets his neck snapped, and then there's a scene where a guy gets lighter fluid poured all over his genitals, and they light it on fire. And
sounds like my shit, man. Sounds like my kind of movie.
The whole point is like this. It has some ideas in there about like how the drug cartel, the drug war in Mexico is kind of making violence and death more commonplace within like the average Mexican household, because Helly's family is not very they're more straight-laced, and then after what his sister does, things go to shit for them. But to me, I think it's just very rote, very generic, art housey, violent film. If you want to see a better movie that does the same subject matter, I'd recommend the movie Miss Bala, which came out a few years ago. Yeah, so I'd leave it at that.
What are some other examples of artsploitation movies you'd say?
Oh God, there's a movie that just played at Cannes this year that I was reading about that seems to fit the label. I forget the name though. I can't think of other artsploitation movies off the top of my head, but it's the kind of I'm trying to think. Michael Haneke gets compared to artsploitation quite a bit. I disagree.
Lars von Trier.
No, I wouldn't say Lars von Trier. This is more of shit. I'm trying to think of like a festival title in the last few years that people got all up in arms about because it was like, say, super violent or had some brutality in there.
Wasn't that Nicholas Winding Refn movie pretty violent?
Yeah, I mean that could probably fall into the label. I would say definitely artsploitation, because it's just kind of like that. I would say Only God Forgives probably, that could fall under it. It's just very nihilistic kind of movies that have a lot of brutal violence.
What about that Proxy? You saw Proxy, right?
I actually didn't see Proxy, no.
Oh no, Dustin, you saw Proxy?
No, I was going to, and I was talked out of it by CJ.
Not by me, no, Bernard, I didn't see it.
Maybe it was you, Bernard. I think someone talked me out of it, kind of like, well, maybe you shouldn't. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I
bet it
won't.
was Ananda. It was probably Ananda.
I don't think so. It was
no,
either you or Blake.
I'll blame it on Ananda. It's fine.
Okay. All right. We'll blame it on
I have
Ananda.
a little rivalry going on there right now with Ananda.
She finally saw Nymphomaniac.
She
Or at
liked
least
it
half
too,
of it.
right?
Half of it, the first half.
Yeah.
She must not have liked it that much if she didn't see part 2.
Well, I mean, yeah. She has her reasons for not liking Lars von Trier films, so I don't blame her.
All right, so let's move on to Boss Man, D-City. What have you been watching recently?
Well, I just watched the latest from Joe Swing Buddies. It's not quite as concise and quite as emotional or impactful as that. But that does have some good themes in it. And actually, it's a lot about, he modeled the film after his own life, essentially, using his own kid. He plays a filmmaker. His wife actually shows up in the film, not as his wife, but she makes a cameo. And it's really kind of a love letter to her, really, and definitely worth a watch.
Awesome. And I'm sure that one's Netflix bound.
Oh yeah,
make
definitely.
That production. So we'll be checking that one out soon. Last night, 2 nights ago, I watched The Fault in Our Stars.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the the new movie starring Shailene Woodley of Divergent, and what was the other one with George Clooney she was in?
Descendants.
Yeah.
Descendants and Divergent fame, and she's acting across from her brother in Divergent, Ansel Elgort, who plays her love interest in The Fault in Our Stars. It's about a girl named Hazel Grace who has cancer of the lungs and meets the love of her life, another kid with cancer, played by Elgort, named Gus. And I went in I walked into the press screening, and it was just full of little girls, as I expected. But I was pleasantly surprised. I actually quite enjoyed the film. I thought it was pretty life-affirming and pleasant and positive, and it was. And I think also Woodley and Ansel Elgort, even though they're very young and don't have much experience on screen, they're very charismatic, and they exude intelligence, which is rare for actors their age, I think. Typically when I see actors early in their career like these two, they're kind of speaking intelligent dialogue, but you don't really believe them. And these two seem like they have some, a good head on their shoulders. So, yeah, it was a touching film, and I wasn't crying, actually. It didn't touch me in a tearjerker way, the way it touched everyone else, but I was actually impressed by the other aspects of the film, and that it looked slick, the performances are great, and Laura Dern. Hello, Internet, we're back. Way Too Indie. Way Too Indie Hangout number, 50
4.
or something. Oh, 4, close enough. Way Too Indie Hangout number 4. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm Bernard, writer over at way2indie.com, and joining me today on the show is the editor-in-chief of way2indie.com, Dustin Jancic. Hello, Dustin.
Hey guys.
And CJ Prince, another writer on the site. How are you, CJ?
I'm fine.
We're all doing fine. Dustin, you said you had a little bit of a bad day today. Let's get that out of the way first. What happened?
Oh man, I don't even want to talk about it. Let's just say hail damage. We had a big storm come through, and there was a tornado warning in effect. I kind of would have rather if there had been a tornado, I think, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Not around me, but in the vicinity, because there's just hail damage and cars got damaged.
And you're in South Dakota, of course.
Yep.
And Sioux Falls, to be exact, and CJ.
Hale Alley.
Yeah. And CJ, you're up in Canada, of course. Our Canadian correspondent, I like to refer to you as, and I'm over here in sunny California. But now, Dustin, you have all this rage, and on today's episode of Way Too Indie Hangout, we're going to get that rage out.
That's right.
Because this is the biggest shit-talking episode we've had since in the show's long history. We're going to be talking about the worst films of 2014 so far. There have been some real pieces of shit coming out that we've all seen, and we're just ready and amped to get our juices flowing about those, because coming up soon here on the site, we're going to have a series of conversations about our favorite films of the year so far. We're really excited about this. We're going to have one-on-one conversations with a lot of our writers about what we've liked so far this year. But now, for this episode, we're just going to talk garbage the whole time. Following that, we're going to have Dustin and CJ participate in a little segment we're going to call Watch This, where they, prior to this episode, they suggested to each other movies